Welcome to my YouTube channel Kafka Skewer. We would like to talk a little bit more about Kafka and basic concepts and fundamentals. I know we have these videos, but I would like to present to you a little bit about the consumers, right? How the consumers work. So let's go. So basically, we have the consumers, and you need to configure the consumer group. Which are the consumer groups? Is the consumer group ID that you need to configure in your Kafka client, right? In what is the ideal number of the consumers? Basically, the ideal number of the consumers is the number of partitions. So if you have three partitions, then correct number is three consumers inside the same group, right? Because with Kafka, let me take this presentation here. No, this is not the presentation. But doesn't matter. So basically, in Kafka here, we can create different consumers, right? To get the information for the same topic and the different partitions. So I can use this consumer here, this consumer here. But it's consumer have only one consumer inside the consumer group. And this one have three consumers inside the consumer groups. And if you configure more than three consumers inside the consumer group, you can see that some of these consumers is waiting mode. I mean, it cannot consuming the partitions because Kafka will attach and get just one by one. So you need to care about take care of this, right? You need to keep this in mind. So let's go and understand a little bit how the rebalance works. So basically, rebalance have a three-step. I split in three-step. We have more steps. Here is a little bit more complex, but I try to simplify the things here to try to explain to you. So basically, we need to know we have a consumer group. Let's imagine is two consumers, and now a new consumer want to join the group. So basically, he will send the join to the leader. So everyone here in the consumer, when it starts, this is an example that I created, right? A new consumer or consumer groups will ask to broker leader. Broker have always one broker is a leader that a consumer group need to go, and the consumer can get and talk first with the broker leader. This is now the group, the consumer leader on the group. And so he will send the join, and the leader and the broker leader give back to the consumer leader. Broker leader send the list of all consumer to the leader, which means if you pay attention here, because Kafka do not process the thing inside the broker. Broker leader just talk with the consumer leader and get all the consumers with the same consumer. Okay, guys, so this is all the consumers with this group that try to consume this topic. Now you guys need to decide what you will do, how you manage this kind of thing. So the group leader send the list of distributed partition between group members. This guy here, he will try to split the partitions between groups and send to Kafka. And Kafka, so now, okay, that's it. So you can start to consume it. This is the basic concept, how the things work, right? And it's important to understand a little bit about the rebalance, because when you have a consumer group with a lot of members inside the group, sometimes you can face the rebalance. Rebalancing can be an issue to you, but if you configure it, we have some configuration that we can care about, and it can help to avoid perhaps the rebalance here, right? But when does a rebalance happens, right? Why this could be happen with your consumer group? So I tried to create three different hypothetical things. So the first one is a new consumer, right? So the consumer joined the group. It's a new deployed. You scale up your pod if you run in a Kubernetes stack, right? So the second thing, or the scale up, you scale down, or you remove someone from the consumer, or you create a new consumer inside the same consumer group, this could provoke a rebalance. Something changing the brokers, right? So broker fail for some reason, or we will add new partitions. When you add new partitions, this will provoke a rebalance because now we have more partitions and the consumer need to know about the consumers. But we have some configuration to keep in mind that the consumers can, for some reasons, can turn off, or can uh, should, for some reasons, can go and receive some session timeouts, for example, exceded. It is a kind of thing you need to take a look. Or max pool interval is exceded. Is another reason. Can be the consumer can leave the group and scale down the pod. This is a kind of other reason, as I say. So can join, scale up or scale down the pod, or you can deploy or can leave or can delete or can exclude your consumer. This is provoke rebalance. But the two important things that you need to keep in mind is these two, both this one, right? The session timeout and max pool interval or max pool. This is a two configuration to please take a look. Try to experiment and try to review in your configuration, because sometimes your consumer needs consuming messages to a Kafka broker, but so you need to process and send for some external API or some database or something like that. And because each record to process and send to this API spend more time, that session timeout or the max pool interval, perhaps you need to reduce the max pool interval or increase the session timeout, or perhaps you need to decrease the number of max pool records. This is another configuration that you can configure together with max pool interval. So this is the kind of thing you need to care about when you talk about the consumers and the rebalances, right? But let's go and understand a little bit more about the types of rebalance. So the first one is the eager rebalance, that we have the shutdown. They will shut down all the consumers, all the members in the group. So you have all the partitions is revoked. We have a downtime window here, because for some reason we need someone, for some one of these reasons, provoke the rebalance. So everyone will stop to consume. Rebalance will provoke and start it. And so after that, after everything is fine, back to the again to consume the messages. And this can be 30 seconds, depends of the case, can be more to the time of the rebalance. To if you have more consumers inside the consumer groups, this can happen, and you need to wait more time, more than 30 seconds, right? So this is something that you need to care about. Sometimes depends of your scenario. But we have some other guy here that we can configure, and some people that not use this cooperative rebalance. This is the good option, perhaps, if you deploy your Kafka your consumers actually, right, your clients in Kubernetes. You could try to take a look this kind of specific configuration, the cooperative rebalance. So basically, you have a consumer groups, and one of the member will continue to consume the message. He do not need to stop, because let's imagine this hypothetical scenario here. So this is consumer. We have two consumers, right? Let's think this way. And now this consumer tree consuming for two partitions, P1, partition 1, partition 3. But now we have a new consumer here, the P2 consumer, right? And the new consumer want to start to consume to a different partition. So what we will do actually, this they will yeah, I confused a little bit confused, right? Let's back. And so this the consumer one is the new guy, right? That want to start to consume here. Yeah, because in the consumer tree, consuming between P1 and P3, and because we assign a new consumer, so we will provoke downtime only to this guy here. Only this consumer will stop to consume messages. The P2, or I mean the consumer 2 that consuming the partition 2, do not need to go down because we use cooperative rebalance that can manage better between the consumers, which means when new consumer join in the group, we do not need to put everyone down and stop everyone. We just need to, okay, this the consumer tree consuming 2 partitions, so just stop this one and rebalance. And now consumer 1, you can take P1 to you and start to consuming P3 to consumer 3, and let's go, right? So basically that's the idea of the cooperative rebalance. And you can configure this. You can assign this kind of thing. You can. It's important to this can be configured. I will provide some links in the comments. You can take a look. Please. This is, I want just to give you some new ideas and new way to configure your consumers, and how you can avoid and how you can lead with this kind of rebalance, right? We have some different options here, and could be a good option to you. Okay, so let's talk more about the consumer side and the commit, how this kind of thing here. I mean, you have the commit sync, the commit async. You can enable out commit, right? This is a kind of configuration in your consumer, which means Kafka consumer clients will automatically do a commit. So what are the things it is good to know when you have the recommendation, right? The slow consumer. If your consumer is very slow, the way recommended to deal with this case is to move the process of the message to another thread, to create perhaps commit, async and sync together. So this is a kind of thing you can thinking perhaps to change in your the way you manage your consumer, right? Your clients, how you consume messages in Kafka. And you need to, because probably the most common thing it is to consume messages to Kafka and producing Kafka is quickly, right? It's very fast. The problem is when you need to consume messages to Kafka, to process, to aggregate, to take the information from an external API or some information in the database or whatever. So I have a lot of experience with different clients that faced issues with this kind of thing. And one of the recommendations, that's it. I mean, if you cannot, I mean, the best option is try to do all the things inside the Kafka, and the end of the process, when you don't need to process anything, aggregate, join, and you don't need to do anything more. You process out the message. So you have just one consumer that will consume messages from Kafka, and will post in the external API or some database or Snowflake or whatever. But it's very common to people want to try to consume the messages process, do a lot of thinking, and try to produce an API, and this provoke and increase the lag, etc., etc. And perhaps you need to, let's say, chunk, right? It's not chunk, but you can create more processes in the maybe posting in different topics your messages, your records, right? Well, let's talk about the partition and assignment. So we have a different partition assignment, and you can decide and configure this. This is a kind of configuration, a kind of class you need to declare in your consumer configuration. When you develop and you build your consumer, you can use this. So we have the round robin assignment, stick assigner, cooperative assigner, and range assigner. So the range is the full class. The round robin is other one that is round robin, right? The stick assigner, it can secure and assign which is balanced to the maximum, preserve the most assigned possible, and this follow the same as a stick assigner and can use the cooperative rebalance. So if you want to use the cooperative rebalance, I recommend you to declare the partition assignment and use a cooperative stick assigner. This is very powerful and can help you with perhaps rebalance. But keep in mind, right, if you need to lead, perhaps if you can see, for example, in this scenario here, this specific consumer can, because they have just this consumer pass for a kind of downtime, kind of not, but is a downtime. You can see the lag only for one partition, and the other partition, perhaps, for example, the partition 2, you cannot see zero lag, right? You cannot see any lag, but for partition 3 and perhaps partition 1, you can see some lag. So you need to keep in mind this perhaps this can be a problem to you, right? So, okay, this is an important thing that, I mean, in my opinion, is a kind of configuration that you need to care about. And yeah, we have a lot of other configurations, right? But the important thing here, you need to declare bootstrap server, you need to declare key serializer, the topic you want to consumer, and the value the serializer. So this is the mandatory configuration that you need to put in your consumer. But the other ones is just not mandatory configuration, but some configs that you can take a look and keep in mind, and with different purpose. As I say, group ID is the name of your group ID, and client ID is a unique client ID for each consumer inside the group ID, right? You can check the heartbeat interval, the enable auto commit, the session timeout. These two work together. The partition assignment strategy, as I commented. You have now the group instance ID. It's another thing that I recommend you to take a look. And I do not put here, but perhaps I need to review. But the max pool interval, the max pool records is now two different configuration. It's very important to take a look and review your consumer configuration if you use external API, right? So that's it. This is a little bit more about Apache Kafka, but today we talk about the consumers and consumer groups. If you have any question, comments, if you like, please help us and put in the comments any new idea or what you want to, what kind of video is important to you. Perhaps I can try to help. Okay, thank you.